All right, let's keep this conversation going. Joining us now to discuss, Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale. Also joining us, Texas Congressman Pat Fallon. So we've got two congressmen here, and I'm excited to get your take on where we stand right now. And Congressman Fallon, I'll start with you. You've been on the program before, and we've typically spoken about the southern border crisis. I want to ask you what your expectations are for what happens on the Ukraine-Russia border. What do you predict?
Unfortunately, I think that Putin might go in. He's amassed these 100,000 plus troops. We've known about it for 90 days. I don't know why the Obama administration, that's a Freudian slip there. The Biden administration didn't get lethal aid to the Ukraine sooner. We had Ranking Member Rogers and Ranking Member Einhoff ask them to do just that, particularly with anti-air and anti-ship missiles. And we want to talk about a border half a world away. I mean, we got to talk about our southern border and securing that first before we really go full on and help the Ukraine. It's a sad thing that we're looking 12,000 miles away and not even securing our own border.
Yeah, we're doing a diplomatic approach. Of course, that's the latest with the White House and, of course, Secretary of State Antony Blinken here. Again, the idea that you've got possibly up to 8,500 troops on standby, more military equipment being sent over to the Ukrainian forces. But I'd like to show you both this. This is a new Rasmussen poll. It shows that 36% of Americans think that U.S. combat troops should not be sent to help defend Ukraine if Russia attacks. 31% say yes, 36% no, and 33% not sure. Congressman Rosendale, how would you respond to this poll?
Emma, I can tell you that I do not believe that America should be sending our troops over there to waste our blood and our treasure in a country that we don't have interest in. They're not a part of NATO. They're leaving the door open that maybe they can join NATO in the future. But specifically, we should not be doing this, especially at a time, which my good friend from Texas just referenced, when we haven't even been able to secure our own border to the south of us. We have over 2 million encounters last year where people have come across the border from other nations, and now many of them we don't even know where they're located. This is a big problem, and unfortunately, we have war hawks on both sides of the aisle that would love nothing more than to get us involved in another conflict halfway around the world, and it's not the place for us to be. The Ukraine, for the last 2 years, all we've heard about on the news is all the corruption and how terrible things are run over there, and they basically are operating as a laundromat for dirty money for people to go in and stick their hand into, and it is not a place where we should be involved.
Congressman Fallon, your thoughts? Is there something that the U.S. could do more proactively to deter Vladimir Putin from taking any next steps without actually sending U.S. troops, boots on the ground, to Ukraine, which is something the president has ruled out?
Definitely. In fact, I think the Biden administration should outline to Putin specifically the sanctions that they would impose if he were to invade. It's called deterrence. The secondary bond market for Russian bonds, we should sanction that. That would have a devastating effect. The oligarchs, the allies of Vladimir Putin and their families, seizing assets and freezing them out of the international banking system. And the big hammer we have in the banks as well, VTB, a big Russian bank, and also freezing them out. Really, the hammer that we have economically is the SWIFT, the International Electronic Banking System. If we froze the Russians out of that, it would have a devastating impact on they have a very small economy for the country of their size. And when we did that to Iran, it really disrupted their economy, something fierce, and that's something that Putin fears. He reacts to strength and he reacts to weakness. And unfortunately, Joe Biden has been just idle and we don't even have an ambassador in Kiev, and it's been a year. That's not signaling to the Russians that the Ukraine is important to the United States. As my good friend from Montana said, we have to take care of our own issues, but we do want to deter aggression because Putin has a pattern. He did it in the Ukraine in 2014. He did it in Georgia in 2008.
Well, it's been advised for those who are in the embassy in Ukraine right now, their families and staff, recommended from the State Department to get out, evacuate, take a commercial flight or a private airliner. We've seen this before. We saw it play out in Afghanistan, not necessarily implying there could be a similar result, but that's something to keep an eye out for. In the meantime, we did get some major news stateside yesterday. Reports of Justice Stephen Breyer set to retire after the end of this term. He's going to give a formal announcement. Again, this is expected later today from the White House. Rep. Rosendale, talk to me about the timing of this retirement and what this means for the future makeup of the court.
Well, I think everybody recognizes that this is a lot of pressure being placed on Justice Breyer to resign, retire, while they still have the ability, while the Democrats still have the ability to replace him with a younger, more aggressive liberal to place on the court for many decades to come. The thing that I see that is so unfortunate is that while we all sit here and talk about equality, and that is all that we hear from across the aisle, they say equity, we say equality. Why are we so fixated? Why is this administration so fixated on making sure they replace someone with the right race and the right gender? I want to find someone who has the political experience and background to serve on the United States Supreme Court, and that's what we should be focused upon. Clearly, the House of Representatives isn't going to have any opinion or any say in this, but I think what you're also going to see is once the Biden administration does make this selection, there are a lot of U.S. senators across this nation that are Democrats that their states voted overwhelmingly for President Trump. And we're going to see now, just like here in Montana, are those senators like John Tester, like Joe Manchin, like Kristen Sinema, are they going to honor their voters' wishes and support justice that's going to uphold their values and the constitutional conservatives? Or are they going to vote to approve another liberal zealot?
Yeah. Yeah, it comes down to, of course, presidential nomination and Senate confirmation. Running short on time, but we'll end on Congressman Pat Fallon. Do you think Democrats will be able to secure the vote in a near 50-50 Senate, of course, with VP Harris, the confirmation vote, if it comes down to it?
Sure, and to echo the great Matt Rosendale's point, where diversity, the most important diversity is the diversity of thought. There's nothing else, what race or ethnicity you are is immaterial. And, people often say, Emma, that we have a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court. I think it's more like 5.5, 3.5, to be quite honest. And it's not surprising that the liberals pushed Justice Breyer essentially off the court when they could. Now, I just wish he had stayed until January of 25 when we could have replaced him with a good young conservative. Maybe like Matt Rosendale up in Montana.
How's that? We'll see what happens next. Of course, we do recall it was Donald Trump who said he would replace the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg with a woman, and then we got Amy Coney Barrett now serving as justice on the Supreme Court. So we'll wait and see the final pick for the president. Congressman Matt Rosendale, Congressman Pat Fallon, thank you both so much. We appreciate the conversation.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
Take care, guys.